All right, welcome to another episode of the Sunset Connection. Today's episode is for anyone who's ever waited in line for something hot, smoky, and worth the wait. I'm talking to Daniel Ramirez, co-owner of Smoking D's Barbecue. What started as a brisket experiment in his outer Sunset home turned into a full-on farmer's market hustle, and now a brick-and-mortar sensation that sells out almost every weekend. Daniel and his wife, Lareina, have created something rare, Texas-style barbecue that's rooted in community and seasoned with cross-cultural love. Daniel and Lareina aren't just serving food, they're sharing a story of migration, marriage, adaptation, all through something hot and smoky that makes you feel, just for a moment, like you're right where you belong. In this episode, we talk about meat, of course, mistakes, hello brisket that wouldn't cook on time, and merging Mexican, Chinese, and Texan flavors into a bao that hits you right in the soul. Stay with us. This is the kind of story that'll leave you hungry, curious, and maybe even a little inspired to build something of your own. Daniel's originally from Houston, Texas, while Lareina grew up right here in the Sunset, a deeply local family. Daniel started Smoking D's back in 2021, smoking meat in his garage in the outer Sunset, where he and Lareina still live today. So Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Where did you get the idea for Smoking D's?
Well, Smoking D's is just kind of one of those things that was an accident waiting to happen. I've always been into barbecue. Growing up in Houston, smoking barbecues ingrained in our DNA. Something we do together with friends, family, hanging out during the weekends, before football games and whatnot.
So tell me about your background. You said you're from Houston. So how was it growing up in Houston?
So growing up in Houston, for those of you that don't know, it's a gigantic melting pot. Houston is very diverse. I mean, there you'll find different cuisines like Viet Cajun, which is one of my favorites right now, besides barbecue. You know, we're in a central part of the country down there. So you have a lot of transplants coming from different continents like Africa, Central America. Mexico's close by, obviously. There's a huge Vietnamese culture down there.
When you moved to the Bay Area, what did you miss most about Houston food?
Moving out to the Bay Area, I couldn't find anything that reminded me of home. So I kind of had this wild idea and created a pre-order that kind of took off, and which brought us to where we're at today.
Was there a moment you realized that this could be more than a hobby, maybe even a business?
So before I started this, I have a whole bunch of friends that I met here when I first moved out here that were from Houston as well. So there's a big group of us. And one thing we would always complain about was like, oh, there's no barbecue. So I started having taste tests.
Okay.
I didn't know what I was going for, what I was doing.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, try this. Tell me what you think about this. All their feedback was fantastic. So that kind of gave me the confidence to put myself out there.
What do you think makes a great brisket now after all those early experiments?
And, I've messed up a whole lot of briskets throughout my life. My dad gave me an old Charbroil offset smoker when I bought my first house. And the first thing I did was attempt to smoke a brisket. The brisket was supposed to take anywhere between 15 to 16 hours. I invited friends to come over. Family came over. But unfortunately, the brisket was not done on time. Brisket is one of those things. It just takes the characteristics on its own. It requires a lot of patience. If you're looking, you ain't cooking. So you have to make sure and let the thing get slow and slow. Just let the brisket do its thing.
How long does it usually take to make brisket?
It kind of varies because, now we're talking about, I started smoking one brisket. Now I'm smoking anywhere between 16 to 20 a day. So there's some that finish faster than others. On average, maybe 15 to 18 hours.
And is there like a certain way that Texas does barbecue that you bring here?
The way Texas does barbecue is more focused on a dry rub. So it's salt, pepper. We're not really known for much of our sauces. We put the showcase in the meat. So if you're looking for a different barbecue sauce at Smoking D's, I'm sorry to disappoint you right now. But it's all in the rub. It's all in the cooking techniques.
Very interesting. And so it also reflects your food, also reflects your Mexican heritage. So tell me a little bit about how you bring that culture in and also the culture of your wife, who is Chinese.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the best of both worlds, right? There's good Chinese food, there's good, Mexican food, and there's good Texas food. So it's kind of, I like to say that there's a lot of similarities between Chinese food and Mexican food. For me, it's like the lotus sticky rice. The first time I had it, I'm like, oh, it's almost like a Mexican tamale.
It really is.
Except it has lotus rice and it has like sweet pork in it.
Right.
And I think it goes to the testament of like ancient cultures where you have very simple ingredients.
Right.
You have flour, water, and wheat.
Or maize.
Or maíz.
Yeah, maíz.
Corn.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
Yes.
So it makes it, for me, easier to understand.
Right. How do you and Lorena collaborate on flavor ideas?
A lot of stuff is things we both grew up eating as kids, part of my French, I like to refer to myself as a fat ass. So I just love eating food. Um,
But you're picky.
I'm picky, but I love eating food. So there's a fine line to it, right? She's introduced me to a lot of different food that I wouldn't have ate if I hadn't met her. Chinese dim sum being one of them. And that's pretty much where the idea for the brisket bao came. My first time to China was probably 2017. And we went to a couple of night markets, that they have out there. And they were making this pork bun. And I thought it was the best thing I ever ate. It was super cheap. I think it was like $1 or $2.
Right.
I was like, wow. The bread was so soft. It was delicious. And this was way before I even had an inkling to do barbecue, where I asked her, I'm like, hey, has anybody ever put brisket in this? And she was like, no, I don't think so. I'm like, so there's not a beef version of this? And she's like, not really, because I learned that beef is kind of a specialty, in Asia where the wealthy people eat, or so I was told. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So fast forward to maybe 2021 or 2022, when we first started doing smoking D's, I started noticing the demographic of our customers. Of course, the Sunset is predominantly Chinese, and I went back to that pork bun experience and I asked them, like, hey, remember that pork bun we ate? Why don't we try to experiment, like putting our brisket inside of this? And, we made a few pre-orders. We've had like 4 or 5 iterations of the buns until we felt they're where they're at now. And it's been a breakout hit. That's one thing that really, I think, set us apart from any other barbecue spot, not just here in San Francisco, but even in Texas. It's just the blending of cultures.
Yes. I have a funny story actually about the barbecue pork bun because when I first met my husband, I also introduced him to Chinese culture and food. And so I tried to explain to him what a Chinese barbecue pork bun was. And I didn't have the words because I've never met someone who's not had it. And I recognize now, of course, there's a lot of people who've never had a barbecue pork bun. And what is that, right? But so I'm like, it's like a sandwich, but it has sweet meat in it and it's very good.
Yeah, it's
And-
good.
And he was like, that sounds terrible. And so I was like, okay. And then he had one and he's like, this is the best thing I've ever had. He's like, if you ever explain to someone who doesn't understand Chinese food, tell them it's like a brisket sandwich, but sweet.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh, okay. I never thought about like explaining what a barbecue pork bun, a Chinese barbecue pork bun, tastes a lot like a really good brisket sandwich, but Chinese.
Correct.
Yes. And so when I saw your buns, I was just like, the first thing I did was like call my husband, like, guess what? They actually did it.
That's great. That we love to hear that, and that's what keeps us going.
Can you tell me a little bit about the barbecue scene in San Francisco? Like you mentioned that you started smoking these because you couldn't find what you wanted here. How is the Bay Area known in the world in terms of barbecue?
Well, I just think it's different because there's a lot of good different types of barbecue here. Let's start with Chinese barbecue or Asian barbecue. There's Korean barbecue. There's Chinese barbecues. There's Vietnamese barbecue. And I think it's just a misconception of what barbecue is and what it isn't. For barbecue from a Texan perspective, for us, it's more about the smoking techniques. Low and slow, cooking it at 225, using a certain type of wood. When you go to an Asian barbecue, it's over like a hot fire. It's like a skewer or whatever. I'm like, okay, now I see the difference.
What did you learn doing farmers markets that helped when you opened the restaurant?
Well, farmers market, it's a challenge because it's very hard to bring a barbecue joint to a farmer's market. So here's the thing that people might understand how farmers markets work. The farmers market might operate, let's use the Outer Sunset, for example. That's where we started from. Farmers market starts from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. I think back then we started till 3 o'clock. We have to set up anywhere between 7 to 8:30. So we have to have all the food ready prior to then, and then we have to set up by 8:30. So having a barbecue outside with the windy conditions, in the Sunset, as we all know, sometimes it's cloudy, sometimes it's drizzling. It's very hard to maintain the quality of our food. We used to have a generator, 6 tables, 4 or 5 people helping us. I think you remember that. And if you know anything about Texas and their barbecue, we are very judgmental about our barbecue. So it's my responsibility to honor that and make
Mm.
sure that the quality lives up to my standard. And as you know, I have a pretty high standard of myself more than I have of others, which is why sometime around 2022, 2023, we transitioned only to focus on our brisket buns.
Oh, interesting. Because you can control the quality
We can
better.
control the quality better. So now with our brick and mortar, we have warmers, we have everything that we need that we don't have to lug around all the
Right.
time. So we trim our meat, we smoke our meat, keep it in warmers, cut it, prep it, sell it. Super easier there than the farmer's market. But we learned a lot doing those farmer's markets.
How did you get around all the permitting process?
We've been very lucky. Before I opened my restaurant, I did a ton of research. I think I told you this when I met you at the farmer's market. People would ask me, "Oh, are you planning on opening a restaurant?" My first words were, "No, never." Now look at us, though. So during that time, I did a lot of research. I reached out to the city. I reached out to Katie Tang and her team at the Office, of Workforce Development, who's been super helpful with us. So we kind of figured out a way of how to smoke, our meats outside in a very smaller capacity than what I would really like to. So I think that's where people don't understand or they get mad when we sell out. I'm like, hey, there's only so much space in my smokers
Interesting. Yeah.
and there's only so much meat I could cook.
Right.
So it is what it is. Doing barbecue is hard, especially I'm going to call it American style barbecue because you really don't have the space in San Francisco to be able to bring in these big Texas size smokers. And I think there's a lot of red tape when it comes from the city and the Bay Area Air Quality Management Department that makes it hard for barbecue restaurants to open. I know there's some places that have been around for a long time that are grandfathered with their permits. So it's just a permitting issue. And then I know there's complaints from neighbors. It's very hard, the way San Francisco's set up, it's commercial residential. And we want to be respectful to our neighbors as well. Even though it smells good, they don't want to smell the smoke 24/7.
Right.
So it's just super difficult. We're always trying to find new ways to become more efficient and try to increase our capacity.
Yeah. I mean, that is a unique challenge for barbecue, American barbecue, that I don't think a lot of people think about
Absolutely.
because the space that's needed.
Space is an issue.
Right.
And when we get these briskets in, they come in between 18 and 20 pounds. So we have to trim 2 or 3 pounds from it. When we smoke it, we lose about 50% of the meat. That's kind of how we come up with our costing.
So has anyone from Texas come and tried your barbecue and been like, man, this takes me back?
Absolutely. And that's probably one of the best compliments I hear. Texans find me every day. I'll never forget this story. We used to pop up at Standard Deviant, and it was a older woman who came, and she told me she was very proud. She's like, "I'm from Denton, Texas." You could hear the twang in her voice.
Right.
She's like, "I'm gonna judge your brisket very harshly." And I was like, "Okay." I'm like, "Well, I hope you enjoy. Thanks for coming out here for supporting us." She was out having fun with her friends. I kind of forgot about it. She came back and she said, "Wow, that really reminded me of home. Thank you for bringing this to San Francisco." So when I hear things like that I don't want to, I'm not sure if humble is the right word, but I think it validates more of what we're doing. And it gives us that extra pressure and motivation to be better every day.
That must be so validating. How do you share that pride with your team?
We have a lot of employees now who've never been to Texas. So it's also a challenge showing non-Texas what Texas barbecue is all about. One thing I tell my staff all the time is complacency is the quickest path to decline. So we can't let all the positive reviews we get or even the negatives, we cannot react to every single one of them. We're not competing with any other barbecue restaurant in the Bay Area. We're competing with our last cook. And as long as we keep the focus on us and what we do, control what we can control, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. I mean, your place always sells out. And I always see lines. All my coworkers go, like, it's great. Like, I think for me, at least from the outside, the reception has been really great. What's the best way people can support you right now if they love what you're doing?
So far, the reception has been great. It's also fun and rewarding, but it's super crazy. Sometimes it could be overwhelming. Sometimes if people come to the store and I'm not all there, it's just super hard. So I'm taking my time because right now we open Wednesday through Sunday from 11 to 6. I will love to open 7 days a week from 8 to 9 p.m. But we have to continue training.
Yes.
We have to focus on maintain the quality of our food.
Right? Because that's what you're putting out into the world, but that's the product that you're selling. That's the thing that you want people to remember you by,
Correct.
is the level of quality of food that they got from Smoking Bees.
Absolutely.
I think that's every restaurant should strive to be like that. And so it's amazing to really hear your story about how you put that into your work and how we've seen the transformation of Smoking Bees from a farmer's market kind of staple to now a brick and mortar, and now growing your brand even further. Really appreciate your time. I'm so excited for you and your restaurant and your business, and I really hope the best of success for you. And it just really adds to the tapestry of amazing cultures and flavors that we have here in the Sunset District. Smoking Bees Barbecue is at
2181 Irving Street.
So go grab a sandwich. Tell Daniel we sent you. So now we're going to move into the trivia portion. This trivia is going to be barbecue related, obviously. And I wanted to incorporate not only Texas barbecue, but also Chinese barbecue into these questions. So do you know which region of China is most famously associated with char siu barbecue pork buns? A, Sichuan, B, Guangdong or Canton, C, Hunan, or D, Beijing?
I'm going to go with B, Guangdong.
Yes, that is correct. Is that because you went there?
I have a Guangdong barbecue place right next to me.
Okay, that's...
So that kind of makes sense, right?
When was Peking duck first developed in China?
Ooh, I don't know. A long time ago. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, the answer is all in the past, yes. A, Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 AD. Yuan Dynasty, 1271 to 1368 AD. Qing Dynasty, 1644 to 1912 AD, or Republic of China era, 1912 to 1949.
We know it's not the last one, so I'm going to go with the first option.
It's the Yuan Dynasty, B. Yes. It originated there and then rose to prominence in the Ming Dynasty. Which immigrant group is credited with heavily influencing the development of Texas barbecue in the 19th century? A, Italian, B, Chinese, C, German and Czech, or D, Irish?
German.
That is correct. German and Czech immigrants brought their meat smoking traditions to Texas in the 19th century. What is the traditional method of seasoning meat in Central Texas barbecue? A, sweet molasses-based sauce. B, spicy dry rub with chili powder. C, vinegar-based marinade. Or D, salt and black pepper only.
Salt and black pepper only.
Yep, that's what I was like, oh, you already said that. All right, so I think you got 3 out of 4.
75%.
Yes.
I'll take it.
Yes, so very good. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Big thanks to Daniel for sharing his journey, starting from his home in the Sunset to feeding lines of hungry neighbors at Smoking Bees. If you're in the Sunset, head over to 2181 Irving Street and grab a Brisket Bao. Trust me, you'll understand the hype. If this episode made you smile, think, or crave barbecue, do me a favor, share it with a friend, hit follow, or leave a quick review. Every bit of support helps this show grow. And as always, if there's someone you think I should talk to next, let me know. Please let me know if you have any feedback. I'd love to hear how I can improve. I want to make this podcast as interesting and useful as I can for all my listeners, so all this feedback really helped. All right. Thanks for listening and tuning in. Hope to see you in the neighborhood. That's all, folks.